Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show as we start your day off on Northeast Streaming Sports Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Hall of Fame legendary boxing writer himself, Jack Hirsch, bringing you Sports Breakfast live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And today's guest, Jack, is Carter B., our NHL expert, who will be around 8:30. And guess what? We already got a comment. Good morning to Keith Hayes. I'm glad you could join us right off the bat, Keith. So, Jack.
Call that a comment? Someone says hi, Mac, and you're analyzing someone who says hi?
Exactly. It's short, it's sweet, and it's to the point, Jack, right? I mean, there's no good morning, what's up? There's not a long rambling thing with Keith. Keith comes right in and just says hi. And that's great for me. I mean, I love that. So, hi, Keith. How you doing? Good morning to you. So, Jack, of course, all the sports are going at once, right? We got everything happening at once right now. This time of year, football, NFL, college, NHL, NBA, the World Series. And last night, Jack, the Houston Astros come back, tied a series at 1 with a 7-2 victory over their ace over there at the Braves. Jose,
Max Fried, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to try and pronounce this. Jose Urquidy was the Astros starting pitcher. They had 5 straight singles in the second inning to open the game up. Glad to see people can still hit singles. And, Houston comes back. And I didn't think Houston would be bothered by that first win by that. Atlanta's very hot. They got a very good team right now. But Houston's got that experience, Jack. They've been there before. They've won it before. Cheating, no cheating, I don't care. This is a team that has a lot of talent.
Yeah, I mean, it's best 3 out of 5 now. The Atlanta Braves were a bit sloppy last night. Swanson, their shortstop, I mean, he was out of position a couple of times. It kind of opened up that, second inning for Houston where they could go up 4-1. As far as the Atlanta Brave ace, Max Fried, this was his second postseason outing in a row where he really hasn't been good, hasn't pitched like an ace at all. And now with Charlie Morton having gotten injured, Atlanta starting pitch in game 1, Charlie Morton's not going to be back for the rest of the series. Max Fried is saying he's available to go on short rest for game 5. I hate it when a starting pitcher, a high caliber starting pitcher like Max Fried is going on short rest, because in this day and age, pitchers are creatures of habit. And whenever they go on short rest, they're virtually never as effective as they'd normally be. So I just don't like the idea of pitching Max Fried on short rest. Hold him out for game 6, because you're going to need him for game 6 unless Houston sweeps the next 3 games and ends the series, and I highly doubt that that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Braves have been playing good ball. I think it's Altuve who ties Bernie Williams for second all-time in most postseason home runs with 22. Manny Ramirez, I think, has 29. Altuve did in less games than Bernie, who was a big playoff hitter. So Altuve comes through, hits his home run, but really was those 5 singles.
Mac, we talk about postseason, okay, 22 homers. Mickey Mantle had 18. They only had the World Series. Imagine all those years, okay? The Yankees win the World Series, and Mickey Mantle had a postseason. He had a couple of divisional playoff series, to hit additional homers. Do you know how many homers he would have hit? He would have hit about, you could double the 18 and say he would have had about 36. So that's one record that probably always would have been out of reach had they had additional postseason games.
Yeah, when the games change, you get more games. Of course, the records are swayed a little bit by the amount of games you play. It's the same with the NFL, right, Jack? I mean, it went up from 12 to 14 to 16, and now it's 17 games. A lot of those records, rushing, passing, whatever, are going to be broken, and that's just part of the game changing.
Yeah, and exactly. You pointed it out great. I mean, for years and years, it was a 14-game NFL schedule, and it went to 16, now 17. Now, one rusher is going to break the single season record for the most yards. And how do you compare that to Jim Brown's 14-game season? There are 3 additional games. But people got offended when they put an asterisk next to Roger Maris's home run record. But he had 8 more games than Babe Ruth. That was the reality. If the Babe had 8 more games, maybe he doesn't hit another homer. Maybe he hits 4 or 5 additional homers to have the record. Who knows? But all these sports things, I mean, comparing records is so difficult because there's so many different elements involved. You can get up more times than someone else. You know, the conditions could be different. The ballparks could be different. Someone could be playing their whole career in a hitter-friendly ballpark. I mean, you just have to judge a record on its merit, I think, not to necessarily compare it to someone else's.
Yeah, and if you do compare, I would think you would try to put it in perspective of how many games and how many playoffs and how I would hope that they would do that. But most people will just say, Barry Sanders is the greatest and not take in consideration that Jim Brown played in less games. Are you going to say that, and I guess it depends on the teams you play on too, Jack, right? Because a lot of these guys that were great didn't get a chance to play the extra playoff games and that add to their careers.
You know who I was thinking of the other day? We were talking football, the Cleveland Browns, and I couldn't help but think of Joe Thomas, their great guard. He played his whole career on losing teams with Cleveland. So what's his ultimate legacy going to be? We all know he was a great player, but is he going to be given the fame that other players, have been given on winning teams? And unfortunately, no. LaDainian Tomlinson's in the Hall of Fame, but he never went to a Super Bowl. What happens if his team won a couple of Super Bowls? I mean, you could flip-flop him and Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith is a little more famous than LaDainian Tomlinson. I'm not saying a better player, a little more famous, but if one went to the Super Bowls and the other didn't, you kind of look at them differently.
Yeah, I agree, Jack.
Our own guy who we love, Jim Jeffcoat. We love Jim Jeffcoat, who does our Sunday show with us. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. What happens if Jim played his whole career, let's say, with the Detroit Lions? They didn't do anything. We just recognized Jim as a very good player who had a very good career, but somehow winning those Super Bowls makes him special.
Oh, I agree, Jack. I agree 100%. And like you say, you got to count the errors. You got to count the time that they played during during their career. I mean, there's a lot of things you should consider when looking at these these records. So let's talk a little bit, and we do this every week, Jack. I'm gonna get it out of the way fast, not because I want to rush it, but we have a wall of fame, folks, over on nessp.info. A great website. Check it out when you get a shot. But we always have what we call our wall of fame, and our wall of fame has all the different sports on it. We choose the best going from the past to the present, and we went to the middleweight division, Jack, this week, and this is where we'll be for the next maybe 4 or 5 boxers that we're going to put in. And this guy, I'll tell you, if there was a better fighter in any weight class, I don't know who it is. Yes, sir. A middleweight undisputed champion from 1980 to 1987. And most boxing fans know who I'm talking about. The great, marvelous Marvin Hagler. Record. 67-3-2, 2-time fighter of the year. And his 3 most famous, and maybe the most famous boxing matches of all time. Hagler Duran, Hagler Hearns, Hagler Leonard. These 3 fights, folks, if you didn't see them, you got to go back and watch them. 3 of the greatest fights in the history of boxing, by far. So, Jack, Marvin Hagler has a tremendous story, not just a tremendous boxer, but a tremendous story on how he got to where he was at, how he became the middleweight champion, how he fought these 3 fights. And, the Leonard one he lost, but a lot of, by record, a lot of people thought he won that fight, Jack.
I don't think he really won the fight, because I think Marvin sleptwalked the first 4 rounds. I mean, he just didn't do anything, and by the time he started really fighting, it was in the 5th round, and then he took the 6th round. It seemed off, and then he came on strong the last 6 rounds of the fight. But Leonard was staying with him to a degree, and I think that's a case. Marvin just left it too late. He wasn't the same fighter he was in the Hearns fight, where he came out with tremendous intensity at the opening bell. Even Leonard said it. He's glad Hagler didn't come out as quick as he did against him, the way he did against Hearns, because then it would have been very, very difficult. And it was just one of those fights. It was a close fight when all was said and done. But I feel Leonard was able to steal a couple of those rounds, and I think it was a legitimately fair decision in that fight. You can make a case for Marvin winning if you want to give him virtually every close round in the fight, which, is basically around 6 through 12, even though Marvin won the 9th round. I remember it specifically, decisively. I beg to differ on one of the fights. When you talk about Hagler-Duran, that wasn't a great fight by any means. It was a tactical fight. I mean, Duran was very cagey, smart. Marvin legitimately won 10 of the 15 rounds in that fight, but a couple of judges had it too close for comfort. They had Duran ahead going into the last 2 rounds, which really wasn't fair. Marvin's fight with John Mugabe, that should be up there as a great fight. That was the fight before he fought Sugar Ray Leonard. That was a brutal fight. Mugabe was a powerful puncher who hit Hagler with tremendous punches, but Hagler's will to win overcame Mugabe, and he stopped him. And Marvin, too, was a career middleweight. He started his career actually taking the tough fights in Philadelphia, which no one else would take. He'd go into other fighters' backyard, and he lost 2 decisions there to Willie the Worm Monroe and Bobby Boogaloo Watts. The Bobby Boogaloo Watts fight was supposed to be a terrible decision, a hometown decision, but the Willie Monroe fight, which was a little early in Marvin's career, was supposed to be a legitimate decision. And Russell Peltz, the promoter, who just came out with a book, he talks about that decision. They were supposed to have a film crew there to film the Monroe-Hagler fight, but a big snowstorm kept them away, so they never wound up with the footage of that. But Marvin then spent his career as a middleweight, and, without question, one of the greatest middleweight champions of all time. Some put him at number 1. I'm not sure about that. It's hard to compare different eras. I don't see how you could put anyone necessarily ahead of Harry Greb from the 1920s, who fought 45 times in 1 year, by the way, and won them all. I mean, that's insane. But Marvin, without question, one of the all-time greats, relentless. And Mac, no athlete ever trained as hard as he did, harder than he did, and got in the type of shape he did. And he had a motto, destruct and destroy, which he did as well as anyone.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the 78% knockout rate, I mean, I know we have a lot of stats for a lot of things, but, that was when I was growing up, really into boxing, and, I saw him fight Interfermo, that first fight that was a draw. Some people thought Hagler won it. Some people thought Interfermo won it. But a great fight. And he took care of Minter, took care of Interfermo the next time. And, like I said, a tremendous story. The guy came out of nowhere. And maybe I think the story is just as inspiring as his career, Jack.
Right. Marvin passed away last year at age of 64. We're not sure what exactly it was, what issues he may have been having. Oh, this is interesting. Frank Laterzo, my co-host on Glove Fist. I hope you're feeling better, Frank. I was going to call you today. I was at Monroe versus Hagler. Monroe won it clean. I'd love to see Frank write about this sometime. If he hasn't already, I'd like to see a story, because people assume that Hagler was robbed going to another hometown. But the reports I heard, even, from Russell Peltz before this with Frank, that Monroe legitimately beat a younger version of Marvin Hagler. He never would have beaten a peak Marvin Hagler at the peak of his career late on. But a Marvin Hagler who was a young fight on the way up, Willie the Worm Monroe was able to beat. But when Marvin Hagler won the world middleweight title from Alan Minter, he stopped Minter in the third round. The ringside physician stopped because Minter was cut really badly. But Marvin Hagler was hitting him with savage punches. But as soon as they stopped the fight, Marvin got down on his knees on the canvas, held his hands up in victory. He was finally middleweight champion after a long wait. No one wanted to give him a shot at the title, Mac. The politicians in his hometown like Tip O'Neill and Ted Kennedy had to step in and threaten an investigation into boxing to speed things up. That's how Marvin got his shot politically, because they feared him. They didn't want to fight him. So Minter loses to Hagler in England. The fans are throwing bottles in the ring. They had to rush Marvin Hagler out.
Yeah.
They could have gotten seriously hurt. The scene was insane and criminally insane, Matt.
Well, let me tell you, Jack, well deserved, and we'll have another 3 or 4 middleweight great fighters added to the wall of fame as we go. But right now, we got one of our favorite guests backstage, a man that knows everything.
Tension grows, the whistle blows, and the puck goes down the ice. The goalie jumps, and the players bump, and the fans all go insane. Someone roars, holy scores, a good old hockey game.
That's right. It's a good old hockey game, and every week we get on one of the premier experts in hockey. He's young, but he knows the sport like nobody else, and we love having him on. Let's bring up Carter B. with his hockey report. How you doing today, Carter?
Hey guys, how are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. How are things going with you and all the stuff that you got going around you? I know you're busy with school and doing your thing. And like I say, we appreciate you coming. How's school going, Carter?
Busy, very busy. Semester's about halfway point at this point. So, just trying to push through. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy that, happy that I'm back on campus, but very, very busy, very busy semester.
Carter, would your grades be better if someone could enforce this? Either you up your grades higher, or no, you can't watch hockey this year. Would that motivate you to do better?
Oh, I'd be a straight A student if that was the case.
So, Carter, I mean, I know it's really the first week in hockey, and I always, every week, and sometimes Jack gives me a hard time with this, but I think it's important that we do this every week, that we kind of review the standings a little bit, right? And to me, there's a few surprises. You have in the Eastern Conference and Atlanta Division, the Panthers out to a 7-0 start. In the Metropolitan, we got the Hurricanes out to a 5-0 start, and that's in the Eastern Conference. Anything surprise you about them quick starts by those two teams?
I'm more surprised about Florida than I am about Carolina. I mean, I think everybody expected Carolina to be, one of the better teams in the Metro Division this season. So, their fast start doesn't really surprise me much. Florida, I mean, they were good last year, but I don't think anybody was really expecting a 7-0 start out of these guys. I mean, and it's not like Florida's just beaten up a bunch of bad teams either. They've beaten really good teams. They've beaten like Tampa Bay, Colorado, the Islanders. They've beaten some good teams here. So, and they just beat Boston last night. So Florida's looking like they're for real. And I mean, I'm impressed to say the least. I mean, I thought Florida maybe overachieved a little bit last year in a relatively weak Central Division, but they're proving this year that they're for real.
Yeah, Carter, I think it's too early. Like I always argue with Mac, that you can't take the standings too seriously. Do you really think the Buffalo Sabres are going to be anywhere near Tampa Bay by the end of the year? But they're ahead of them right now. How could you take it too seriously? Montreal has been awful this year so far, but to me, I think everyone is just warming up. It's like loosening up for the season still. I just can't take it too seriously, except for Florida, because I know someone down in Florida who was very excited before the season. They really thought Florida could, contend for the Stanley Cup. So this start, hasn't surprised them. So maybe they're the one team that could actually keep it going.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with the point that, it is too early to kind of pick and choose who is a contender and who isn't. I think a lot more people obviously have their eye on Florida because they made the playoffs last year and they were pretty good. But, I'm not trying to annoy any Buffalo Sabres fans here, but sorry, I don't see you making the playoffs this year. It might be a little too early for that. And they say that the cutoff for those kind of things is around, usually if you're in the playoffs by around American Thanksgiving or Black Friday, around that weekend, your chances of making the playoffs are much, much higher than if you're not. So we'll check in about a month or so and we'll see where teams are. And if you're in the playoffs, then you probably have a good chance of making it come springtime.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's early, but I mean, these games you don't get back at the end of the year. Those 7 games or those 5 games that Jack mentioned that the Sabres are off to right now, those 5 wins are going to count at the end of the year. So if they're in the top 5, that these games may play a part. Let's talk a little bit about the Sabres. I mean, listen, they're one of the locals we cover. They got 3 goals in the third, 2 goals from Overson. And, their star is not playing. I think that says something about him, Carter. I mean, we were all talking about their big superstar and his operation and whether we'd play or whether he's going to go get the operation. But it seems like Buffalo is playing inspired hockey right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it has anything to do with that. I'm sure maybe they have a chip on their shoulder from what they've seen from the Jack Eichel situation. But, yeah, I mean – Buffalo looks pretty good to start out the year anyway. I mean, they just beat up the 2-time defending Cup champ Tampa Bay Lightning 5-1. So, again, I mean, it is a little bit early to really pick out who is a contender and who isn't. Right. Yeah, I mean, with the way the last decade plus has gone for Buffalo, I mean, their fans deserve a little bit of winning at least. And if this is all they get this year, then so be it, but I feel bad for those Sabres fans. I mean, they deserve their team to make the playoffs. It's long overdue at this point. Now it's just a matter of whether or not the team can really kind of get their act together and, make it for themselves.
This Jack Eichel situation's gotten ridiculous now. It is so out of hand, and he's thinking of going to the next measure of appealing. But meanwhile, he's not playing. Bottom line, I mean, everyone is losing in this. I mean, why is the Sabre management taking such a hard stand? Let him get his own darn surgery. It's obvious he wants to play. I mean, he's not looking to retire and collect, a check based on disability. I just don't get what's going on. It's like a tug of war here.
Yeah, I think with that, I mean, the thing with the whole Eichel situation is that the CBA currently, teams have the last say in terms of medical issues like this. And I know that's not, that doesn't sound very good because obviously the Eichel situation is blown up into something that it really shouldn't be. But at the end of the day, though, the Sabres do technically have the last say in what's going on with that. So, I'll leave that for people to think about while I bring up my next point here. And it's that I don't think the Sabres want Eichel to get the surgery that he wants because no NHL player has ever gotten the disc replacement and have ever come back to play. You know what I mean? There have only been a very limited number of players to get it. But meanwhile, the surgery, the Sabres, are pushing Eichel to get, that surgery has been a lot more successful. The recovery rate has been a lot better. So, I mean, there's an obvious impasse here, but From what I've seen anyway, Eichel and his camp are planning to basically go back to the Sabres and quote-unquote bombard them with medical info just to kind of push this one last time, see if they can get the Sabres to budge on their surgery request. If not, I've heard this could go as far as even filing a grievance towards Buffalo. This could get pretty ugly. It's gotten pretty ugly now, but it could get uglier as time goes on.
A team's reluctant to trade for him based on this surgery because you would think a team that wants him bad enough will trade for him and let him get his own surgery because, you have to assume he badly wants to play as well.
I think they used to be, but I know Emily Kaplan, who works for the NHL on ESPN, she actually reported the other day that there are still about 5 teams interested in Jack Eichel, and pretty much all of them are willing to let him get the surgery that he wants. So, at the end of the day, though, I mean, Eichel's now willing to show his medical history. I should say Eichel's camp is willing to show the medical history to other teams, and I think that's really began to kind of push trade conversations along. I know she reported that the NHLPA has also stepped in to kind of push things along here, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But I would think a move is coming sooner rather than later. But again, we'll have to wait and see how it plays out.
So in the other conference, you have the Blues at 5-0, and you have in the Pacific, you have the Oilers, believe it or not, at 5-1. The Blues, I think, we were a little disappointed in last year, if I'm not mistaken, Carter. And the Oilers, of course, they got beat up in the Northern Division. Do any of those teams surprise you out to the quick start that they're out to right now?
St. Louis does. Edmonton really doesn't. I mean, that division's pretty, no offense, it's pretty weak outside of them in Vegas, so I was expecting Edmonton to finish pretty high. St. Louis, I wasn't exactly expecting to finish too high. I had Colorado and Winnipeg in that, kind of battling for that top 2, and those teams have kind of stumbled out of the gate, and St. Louis has jumped on this chance to take first place in their division, and they're doing it so far. So they look good. They're getting contributions from all around the lineup. They're getting scoring from all 4 forward lines. Their D pairs are playing well. Jordan Binnington's playing really well in the net, so they're getting contributions from everybody.
Well, in our locals, Carter, as we talked about right now, Buffalo is off to the best start. The Bruins are at 3-2. We've got the Rangers at 4-2-1. They're like the second best right now, behind the Sabres and behind the Bruins, I should say. You got the Flyers that are next, and then you got the Devils. The Rangers is interesting to me because to me they're still a pretty young team. And if they can get a little confidence going into the end of the year, I think they got a legitimate shot, Carter. I know you might disagree with that a little bit. I know the Islanders are going to be there. I have a feeling the Bruins will be up near the top in their division. I think that Boston has a shot too to get. But I'm really interested in the Rangers and get your thoughts. I mean, still a young team, got a couple of vets they have over there. They're more offensive than defensive, but their defense isn't playing bad. Do you think that – I know we've talked about this before in the last show, but do you think if the Rangers can hang in there and gain a little confidence by the end of the year that maybe they can squeeze in the 4th spot?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have a very young and entertaining team to watch. I mean, just because I'm an Islander fan doesn't mean I'll deny that. Personally, I thought they had overdone it just a little bit in terms of going out and getting, tougher in the offseason. I know they got a lot of bottom 6 forwards to kind of bolster their physicality. They did the same with some of their defensemen. I thought they might have overdone it just a little bit, but it seems right now that they're meshing pretty well together with that young talent that they have. So, if the Rangers can kind of continue to play how they've been playing, I mean, they dropped their last game to Calgary, but overall, they've been pretty solid this year, and I don't really think it's them in particular they have to worry about. I think if they play their game, they'll be fine. I think it's the teams around them, right? I mean, you got Pittsburgh and Philadelphia who are off to, decent starts. You got the Islanders who are off to a bit of a slow start. You'd have to think that at least 2 of those 3 teams are going to make the playoffs this year, right? So, if you're the Rangers, you just got to worry about your own game. You got to worry about what you can control, and those teams have a pretty good shot at making the playoffs too. So, it might be hard to see them beating out one of those three if it comes down to the Rangers making a wild card, but I could definitely see them making it this year.
That Metropolitan Division is brutal. I mean, the Devils have won 3, they've lost 2, and then last place. I mean, with that type of record, that's been a recurring theme with their coach, Lindy Ruff, which really bothers me. As soon as they hit a slump, they don't play well. He says after games, we didn't come ready to play. I hate that line. He seems to say it more than any other coach, and that's the worst thing a coach could say. We didn't come ready to play, because it's a coach's job to have them ready to play. And if they're not ready to play, you have to make some changes. The heads have to roll. What's your take on the Devils? It's like I'm waiting for them to kind of fall off the radar, because right now they're playing well for themselves. They're not considered a serious playoff team. But can they possibly hang in and make a playoff run at the end of the year? At least contend, be there in the mix by the end of the year. Is the talent there for them to do that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they look pretty good right now. They're getting a lot of contributions from a lot of their big free agency signings, especially Dougie Hamilton on defense. He's been really good for them. But if I'm being honest, I'm kind of waiting for them to fall off too. I don't see them necessarily making the playoffs. I think they'll be in the race until, close to the end of the season. I do think this is a better Devils team than we've seen, over the past 3, 4, 5 seasons. So, the goal of getting better has, they've achieved that, I would think anyway. But, with just how good this division is, it's hard for me to see them making it.
In football, we talk, guys, about franchise quarterbacks. In hockey, they don't use the term so much. Franchise goalies, someone who you want to be there long term. Is Blackwood the answer for the Devils?
He looks to be. I mean, if you look at his stats, the way he's played over the past few seasons, he looks to be that guy. So, with a guy like Blackwood, I mean, franchise goalie might be a bit of a strong word. I think he's an elite goalie. I think he can, kind of elevate his game to that next level. But, I don't know if I consider him to be a franchise goalie. I mean, we'll have to wait and see how his career kind of plays out before you hit him with that label.
Definitely agree. Carter, do you think the Islanders are they got a lot of vets on the team, right? There's a lot of experience on the team. Do you think they should have maybe went after a little more new young talent? Are you happy with the way the team is set up right now?
I'm pretty content with the way the team's set up, to be honest. I mean, I didn't really see any issues with their forward core. I mean, on defense, I'm not a big fan of Chara so far. He hasn't looked too great, but I mean, the defense market was pretty, it wasn't too great to start out. So I guess they kind of did what they had to do to get a replacement for Nick Leddy in that top 4 spot. So, I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, though, I think fans kind of, they say they want certain things, and then at the end of the day, though, it kind of, the move that the GM made played out better than everybody thought, I think. So, again, I mean, we were talking about it before. It's still a relatively small sample size to judge teams anyway. I think it's the same with players. So, I mean, Chara's still got a lot of time to bounce back, but, if we're going based off of this small stretch so far, he hasn't looked too amazing.
Well, you got to admit, Carter, the team you have, the core you have, there's a window. You guys have been close, the last couple of years. It's going to close within the next 1-2 years. I think the Islanders got to make their move here pretty soon with this team to take that championship. They got enough talent to do it, and that's for sure. So, that's all I got, Jack. You got any more questions for Carter? Anything?
Yeah, you just look at the NHL. There's so much parity there. I mean, the reason we make Tampa Bay a favorite is based on what they've done the last couple of years, winning the Cup. But if you just look at the teams objectively, I think hockey, more than any other sport, when you get to the playoffs, you could throw the regular season out the window. There are always going to be major surprises, teams that are big favorites to make a serious run. They fall off the radar, like the Toronto Maple Leafs last year, and a team given virtually no chance, like the Canadiens, make it to the finals. So I think come playoff time, it's so hard to get a handle and make a prediction.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of the Stanley Cup playoffs, right? You can go in there as the 8th seed playing against, the 1 seed, and you still have the same chance to win, right? People might look at the how the 1 seed did in the regular season compared to the 8th seed, but at the end of the day, the playoffs are a fresh slate. You just got to make it to the playoffs, and then anything can happen after that. So, that's kind of the beauty of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I know I'm not trying to rip on them or anything, but in the NBA, if you make it as an 8 seed and you're playing the 1 seed, there's a very, very slim chance that you might even win a game, let alone win the series. Most of the time those series end in sweeps or 5 games at most. In the NHL, I mean, you have an equal chance to win no matter who you're playing. So you never truly know who's going to win. That's what I love about it.
But Mac makes a good point with the Islanders, even though they're a reasonably young team. You wonder the window, does it shut at a certain point? Because people keep thinking, well, the Islanders, they play Tampa Bay tooth and nail the last couple of years. Now they could just take the next little step towards the cup. But getting back to where they were is going to be very hard just to get to that point before taking the next step. So you kind of wonder, with all the parity, how difficult it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, to address the Islander Cup window thing, I think it might be open a little longer than most people expect it to be. To be completely honest, as long as Barry Trotz is behind that bench, I think they could contend for a decently good amount of time. I mean, at the end of the day, though, I think, I like the Islanders' youth right now. I mean, I think they do have a lot of good young pieces, but I think their cup window could be open for a few more seasons than a lot of people expect it to be. And in terms of getting back to where they were, yeah, it's going to be tough. But they've done it the past 2 seasons. I mean, who's to say they can't do it a third time, right? Statistically speaking, in the playoffs, they've been the second best team behind Tampa in the entire league. So, I mean, there might be teams better than them on paper, but I think the Islanders can truly compete with anybody.
No, there's no doubt. With that defense, Carter, they definitely can. I mean, the way they play, their style is, as long as they can get a few goals, they're in 2 goals. Heck, they're in every game. So, Carter, I want to thank you for coming in. As hockey has started, I mean, every week things are going to be changing, and we love having you on every week and informing us about the great game of hockey. Thanks again for coming in, Carter.
All right, guys, take care.
You too, my friend. So there you go, Jack. Carter B getting us up to speed in hockey, and this is, again, just started up. We're talking about the teams and who's a surprise and who's not, and probably by the end of the year, you're going to have the same group that was there last year that will be banging on the door. But there's always that 1 surprise, 2 surprises teams, Jack.
Well, last year was the Montreal Canadiens, and they're struggling this year. They've been one of the worst teams in the NHL to this point this year. So whether they make the playoffs this year is, highly questionable. But you're right. Certain teams expect to be there at the end, like the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions, the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're kind of middle of the pack right now, but they're going to be seriously contending at the end of the year. And then in sports, there's always this one team that goes on a big run at the beginning of the year, and they're the hottest team in the league. Right now it's the Florida Panthers, which are intriguing. But come playoff time, these teams tend to run out of gas, and they can't carry it through wire to wire. We hear the term wire to wire, but that's rare that a team leads from the beginning of the year, wins the championship at the very end.
Agree. And Florida, the hockey capital of the nation. Who knew, Jack? I mean, Florida.
I'm going to tell you, the the Lightning are rarity. They're more relevant in the Tampa Bay community and more popular than the Tampa Bay Rays.
I know.
Hockey is more popular in Tampa Bay than baseball. Football, because of Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, they passed the Lightning. They're clearly the number 1 ticket in Tampa Bay. Okay, but the Lightning do come ahead of the Rays. Maybe had the Rays won a World Series, who knows what the perception would have been.
That's
But
crazy.
the Lightning are very, very popular.
And you would think, as popular as baseball is in Central and South America, and there's a huge community of Central and South Americans in Florida, that baseball would be off the hook, but it's not. It's weird.
Mac, if the Rangers won another Stanley Cup, would they become more popular in New York than the Giants and Jets right now?
It's a good possibility, Jack.
I mean, the Giants and Jets, the way they're playing, I'm saying.
Good possibility.
Interesting.
Good possibility. Folks, we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the NFL. We got a lot to get to, so stick with us. We'll be right back after these few messages.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Oh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
Chock full of nuts is that heavenly coffee, heavenly coffee, heavenly coffee. Chock full of nuts is that heavenly coffee. Better coffee a millionaire money can't buy.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
My gray hair makes me feel so old. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna wash that gray right out of my hair. I'm gonna wash that gray right out of my hair.
Loving Care Color Lotion from Clairol washes away your gray and washes in your own natural color. Loving Care is different. It's gentle. It has no peroxide or ammonia.
So I wash that gray right out of my hair. Yes, I wash that gray right out of my hair.
Wash that gray right out of your hair with Clairol Loving Care.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. I'm your host, Mac, with Jack Hirsch, bringing you up to date, all the information you could want on the sports scene today. I mean, there's been a lot of things happening since we've been off, folks, and of course, we're covering them the best as we can, as we just had the NHL expert, Carter B., filling you in on that. We talked a little bit about the World Series, and let's talk about the game a little bit tonight and get to the NFL, Jack. We've got the undefeated Arizona Cardinals going against the 5-1 Green Bay Packers tonight, which should be an awesome game. Green Bay has their receiver, their number one receiver, as a matter of fact, Davante Adams, out, and it looks like the Cardinals, after J.J. Watt signed that big contract, he's had injury problems his latest years with Houston. It looks like he's got an injured shoulder, Jack, so he's going to miss tonight. He may require surgery. I don't know. So, what do you think? I mean, you're on mute right now. So.
It looks like J.J. Watt is going to be out for the season, actually. But J.J. Watt hasn't been the same force for Arizona that he was at Houston. He's just been a so-so player for them. And you kind of wonder, a very physical player like J.J. Watt, has he just lost a couple of steps? I mean, still a decent, effective player, still a good player, but not the force that he was before, okay? But now with him being injured, it looks like it's going to be irrelevant, and he might not be back this season at all. There's a good chance that he won't be. As far as the Packers go tonight, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is up against him. He's not just missing his number one receiver, Davante Adams, who some consider to be the best receiver in the NFL. Like Michael Irvin said, Adams, in his views, the best receiver in the NFL. He's also missing his other receivers as well. Okay, so basically he has backups, in there. It's going to be very, very hard. When, your top three guys aren't in there together who you're used to throwing to all the time, it becomes more difficult, and it puts Aaron Rodgers under a lot more pressure. Even if you release the ball on time, you beat your rush. If no one's open, there's nothing you can do but throw the ball away.
So what do you think? What do you think the Packers are going to do, Jack? Do you think they rely more heavy on their running game with their great running back, or do you think they just let Aaron Rodgers rip it to the second string wide receiver?
I think they need a supreme defensive effort where they need a lower scoring game and just have time of possession. Where Aaron Rodgers throws a lot of short passes and just play a control type game, which Aaron Rodgers, of course, can do. But Aaron Rodgers is a big play quarterback. Everything can be the same with Aaron Rodgers in the Pack offense this game, except the big plays that you would hit downfield to Davante Adams. And Arizona knows it. The Packers won't quite pose that threat the way they would if everyone were healthy. And they could adjust defenses accordingly, too. And this is a big game. It was supposed to be a showdown game. But somehow it doesn't give me the same feel now with these injuries. I'll be surprised if Green Bay wins this game. I really
Me too. And even with Davante Adams, I would have been surprised if they won the game, Jack. I think the Cardinals are for real. I think their defense is a lot better than Green Bay's defense. And I think they got a better overall team. You got Aaron Rodgers.
Mac, for the Packers to show they were for real. When we talk about the teams we favor in the NFC to go to the Super Bowl, who do we talk about, Mac? We were talking about Arizona. We were talking about Tampa Bay. We were talking about the Rams. Somehow the Packers were just a little behind always. So this was supposed to be their statement game. It still could be. If they should upset Arizona, all of a sudden the Packers come to the front, as far as a favorite to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC.
I still think they're a favorite, and especially when the receivers get back. I mean, one game anybody can win in the playoffs, just like any other place. Maybe Green Bay plays out of their mind because they have these receivers out. We'll see what happens. I think it'll be a good game anyway, Jack. I think it's going to be a good, tough game, and I don't expect it to be low scoring though. I expect it, to be in the 30s at least by both teams. So we'll see what happens tonight. Staying on the NFL, I talked about this with Byron and Jim Jeffcoat last night on their show, J&B Talking Shop. And every time you have a losing season or you lose a few games, the saying I love to hear from the losing team is we got to get back to basics. And I really don't know what that means at the professional level. I know what it means at the lower levels, right? We're not blocking correctly. We're not tackling correctly. We're not running hard enough. We're not going to the ball as a defense. I mean, that's what you're talking about, lower levels. But these are professionals. And, we talked before the show a little bit. And I mean, coaching in the NFL has become almost like, especially on the offensive side, we've got so many plays, so many different schemes, so many different formations. And if you look over the past, Jack, the teams that seem to go to the Super Bowl and win are the teams that are better at the basics, right? I mean, you can go back to Vince Lombardi. Vince Lombardi basically on offense, not that they didn't throw the ball every once in a while, and not that they didn't have different running plays, but their bread and butter was the power sweep. And Vince Lombardi spent hours and hours and hours with his players executing the power sweep. And other teams knew what was coming. They just didn't know what side. Tackles blocked down, the guards pull out, there's a lead blocker, Taylor Horning outside, and you had to stop it. And it seems that way a lot with a lot of great teams, right? I mean, even if you go back, you go in the recent past, Jack, Dallas Cowboys, Emmitt Smith, off guard, off tackle, got to stop him. Even last year, you knew what Tom Brady's good at, and you knew what Patrick Mahomes was good at. Tampa Bay was able to stop Patrick Mahomes, and the Kansas City Chiefs were unable to stop what Brady does in that offense does. So when they say back to basics, to me, what it means is that the players aren't getting their schemes and they're not getting their formations. And maybe it's too complex, Jack.
Yeah, it seemed to be that way. The other day last week, when we had Byron Williams on the show, I mentioned to him, how come the formations aren't like they were before, fullback, halfback, and teams are getting so fancy in these formations, trying to stop other teams. And football's very basic. You block, you tackle, you catch the ball, you run routes. And listen, all the schemes, I understand you have to have them. It does give you an edge without question. But at the end of the day, I've seen so many missed tackles. Like last Thursday night's game, the Cleveland Browns against the Denver Broncos. Cleveland wins 17-14. The Denver Broncos just weren't tackling well. That's all there was to it. It was basic. I mean, I couldn't coach them how to tackle, but I could give them the advice. You lost the game because the tackling was poor. So the coaches should be working on methods of tackling again. What are we doing wrong with the tackling? But they're more scheme-oriented than fundamentals, okay? And I understand you get to a certain level, the NFL, and you might think, well, we know the fundamentals. We've done this a lot of times. But, it's repetition over and over and over again. You're working on tacklings. If a guy's coming in this angle, how do you tackle him? And you just don't get that. It's just schemes the whole time. It's like, it's madness. How many new schemes can you come up with after a while, Mac? How many new things can you invent? And it seems like these coaches are always trying to invent new things. You know what I thought about also recently that's never used? And by the rules, you can use it. I don't think they changed it. How come no one uses the drop kick? The kickers are so good now. Couldn't the drop kick be more successful? Was it outlawed? What's going on? No one uses it.
It's definitely still in the rule book. but they don't practice that anymore.
You
Jack.
punt the ball through the goalposts and you score.
Well, it's got to hit the ground first, Jack, and that's the problem.
You got these. Get a soccer style specialist. Get a guy from Europe. They have so many of these trick kickers. Create one roster spot for a soccer player, a great soccer player who masters that. Listen, we see guys who could never make it to the NBA. They play a little street ball, but they've mastered making these crazy trick shots in basketball, okay? They couldn't do it in a game if they were getting guarded by an NBA player, but they could do it if they're open. So you get a soccer player who could drop the ball, have it hit the ground, and kick it between the goalposts. There'd be a good number of them around, I'm sure.
The last person that did that was Doug Flutie for the Patriots, and it counted. See, the thing with the football is shaped a lot different than a soccer ball, Jack, right? If it hits the point at any angle, it can veer off. But in rugby, they still do it, and the ball is still shaped different than football. Listen, I think it would be a heck of a weapon if you had a punter that could become a drop kicker too.
Get a rugby player, put him in who could really master it.
But why would you do that when you got a field goal kicker that can kick it 60-something yards, Jack?
What you do, okay? In Australia, say help wanted. We need a drop kicker NFL team looking for pays handsomely tryouts, and have the NFL personnel go to Australia, for example. You know how many guys would be coming out to drop kick?
But why? But again, Jack, why would you use that? I mean, unless you're going to quick drop kick on third down, why would you use that out of a shotgun, which could disguise as anything? But why would you use that when a field goal kicker can kick the ball 60-something yards now? I don't know. I mean, listen, it would be fun to see. It was fun when Doug Flutie did it on the Patriots. Yeah. It was fun. But we'll see what happens.
Well, the one area you're right, compared to back in the day, the field goal kickers are so much better than back in the day. No comparison. The old timers, a 50-yard kick was a monster kick. Right. Now, if a guy missed a 50-yard field goal years ago, it wouldn't be his fault. It was kind of a little bit like a crapshoot because it's so far away. But in this day and age, if a guy is lining up for a game-winning kick and it's from 55 yards out and he misses, the burden's on the kicker, like, oh, he choked, he this, he that. Everyone's got such a powerful foot in this day and age.
Very true. So let's stick with the NFL. Let's talk about something we also disagreed with, that we disagree with sometimes a lot. The Jets have to go and get Joe Flacco because Zach Wilson gets hurt during a game, and that doesn't surprise me in the least. See, what happens is I still believe, and I don't care what team they played for. I know certain teams are better than others, but a rookie quarterback, and we're not even talking about records now because the rookie quarterbacks are having a little bit of problems this year. Even Mac Jones is still on a losing record team anyway, but he's in a pretty good position. But when you take a rookie quarterback and you put him on a team that's rebuilding with a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, non-existent running game because they don't even try to run the ball or try to commit to running the ball. And all he does is throw the ball the whole game. And he's getting interception. He's getting hit all the time because his line cannot protect him. That's crazy. And not only did you hurt this kid, but you may ruin this kid. And I'm not over-exaggerating here at all. You might ruin Zach Wilson, put him in a position where he has to throw the ball all the time because you, and for some reason, have an offensive coordinator that does not want to work on the run game and a head coach that's going along with it, and you're throwing this young kid out there and saying, go ahead and do it. And these college quarterbacks, Jack, are not used to the speed of the NFL. They're not used to the defensive formations that are far more advanced in college. And you're asking this kid to go out and try to win the game for you. It's ridiculous. And if the Jets don't get their heads out of the sand and start thinking about committing to a running game, playing physical football instead of trying to put Zach Wilson, throw the ball like Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady does, they may lose this kid, Jack.
Mac, the Jets don't have a running game. I mean, their main runner is Michael Carter from North Carolina State, and he was a 4th-round draft pick. Yeah, a 4th-round draft picks don't usually start in the NFL because it's not a high draft pick, meaning he wasn't an elite college runner. He was a good college runner, but not an elite one. And if he's your main running back, you better have a great offensive line to open some big holes, which the Jets don't have. So, what can they do? If the talent's not there, what can an offensive coordinator do? The offensive line has been a disappointment. All teams have injuries. And with Michael Carter, the main runner, 4th-round pick,
Jack, I don't care.
It forces them to throw.
I don't care if you go 4 downs and punt almost every series. I don't care. Because you're not going to win by him throwing the ball all over the place. It's not going to happen.
Well, you're not going to win 4 downs. You're going to.
I don't care, Jack. I don't.
Three times gain 6 yards and punt.
I don't care. You're not going to win by him throwing either. I say you make a commitment to the run. You play good defense. You try to get turnovers and have them throw once in a while off the play action. That's what you do with it. If you're going to do it, that's what you do. You don't put a young quarterback in that position where he's definitely going to get hurt and you ruin his future and your future.
And now you're going to get rid of the ball quicker. Listen, they have the same problem in Chicago with Justin Fields.
You can't, and that's wrong too. And that's wrong too. Justin Fields should not be playing. Period. He should not be on that field right now.
There was public pressure put on
I don't
in that type of situation.
I don't care. I don't care about public pressure. You got to look out after your 1st-round draft pick who you think.
Mac, the team doesn't get better overnight. Listen.
I don't care, Jack. You're going to ruin the kid.
Mac, you're going to ruin him by not playing him.
No, you're not, Jack. He's already injured, Jack. He's already injured. How can you ruin him anymore? Listen, you do not put a young kid in a position where he's number one. You've seen the other quarterbacks. They're not too successful this year. You don't put them on a team.
But Mac Jones has been successful.
He's at a different.
Of course. Trevor Lawrence is coming along nicely, with Jackson.
Okay.
I mean, he's not he's coming along, put it that way.
Still, even with that, Jack, a different team. Different team. You have, in Trevor Lawrence situation, a team that lost a lot of games by 3 points. With the Jets got blown out a lot of their games. You do not, and I think it's wrong to even start Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion, but that's okay. I'll live with that. I'm saying the specific position where you have a new young offensive coordinator that's younger than some of the players on the team, first year head coach, you do not put a rookie in that position. You don't, as a quarterback. If that's who you want to be your starting quarterback for years to come, you don't do that. And Burrows is lucky. Because Burrows, if his injury was any worse than what it was, he may not be playing football today.
Well, the
Zach
question
is no Joe Burrows. Trust me. Go ahead.
The question's this. If you don't play Zach Wilson now, when are you going to play him?
Maybe next year. Maybe
you're saying maybe next year.
Maybe.
For that to happen, according to your philosophy, the team's going to have to improve substantially. The running game's not going to get better unless changes are made. You don't know whether the offensive line is going to be much better. A quarterback learns by playing.
Not like this, Jack. What's he learning? How to throw interceptions and how to get hurt? He's not learning nothing out there right now. He's not.
But if he's on the bench,
right?
Who's he going? Listen, who's he going to get the wisdom from? You mentioned Joe Flacco.
From a veteran quarterback. Okay, Jack, we should have got. Go ahead.
Let's talk to Joe Flacco's situation, okay?
Right.
Or let's talk about Sam Darnold, who was here 3 years before Zach Wilson. They brought in veterans like McGowan. Then they had Flacco last year when Sam Darnold was on the team. It didn't do any good for Sam Darnold, really. Now with the Panthers, he got benched last game.
Yes, he did.
Which I don't put that. You want to know something? I don't think it was a terrible move. It's the equivalent in baseball of a starting pitcher has nothing going for him that game. He's awful. Even if he's your ace, you have to take him out. He's just not functioning.
The game was over. The game was over. Good.
Well, no, the game wasn't actually over per se.
Pretty much.
No, they were down, I think, 15 points or so at the time. It didn't. But the point is, Sam Darnold, they're not sold on him anymore at Carolina. Even though I feel he's shown flashes of being pretty good this year as well, especially when he led the Panthers on a 97-yard drive at the end of the game against the Vikings. I was very impressed with that. But Sam Darnold isn't going to be a difference maker in the long run. He's not quite what you're looking for. The reason I'm not picking on Sam Darnold, he was with the Jets 3 years before. Let's look at the Joe Flacco thing. Now they brought in Joe Flacco, and you're thinking, let Flacco play, let him take his lumps, let him this, let him that. The Jets' deal with the Eagles was this, and it was a bad deal on a couple of accounts. They had Flacco last year. Why on earth are they revisiting Joe Flacco if they were so ready to move on from him last year? Maybe he's back because they might feel, well, he knows the system, but it's a different system. It's a different coach. Okay, they gave up for Flacco a 6th-round draft pick. For Flacco to be just a temporary fill-in at most. Flacco's the equivalent of a substitute teacher who's subbing for the week, okay? I mean, that's it. You know, he's not going to be there long-term with the students. He's not giving them report card grades. So, you know, getting them ready for...
He's an emergency quarterback and gets the quarterback...
But Matt, they gave him capital for him. They gave him a 6th-round draft pick.
Well, yeah, they're going to have to give something. What are they going to do? What are they going to? He's under contract.
If Flacco plays a certain
he's under contract. He was under contract with the Eagles, Jack. Yeah. Well, listen to me. They had to give up something. He's under contract with the Eagles, first of all. Second of all, he is not going to go there to tutor Zach Wilson or the other quarterback. He's there as an emergency quarterback in case the guy that starts Sunday, I don't even know his name, gets hurt. That's why Flacco's there.
I understand that. What I don't understand and what you don't understand is why the Jets would give up a potential 5th-round draft choice for a guy who might play a few games, who's not going to make any difference at all to this season. The Jets obviously aren't going to the playoffs.
What choice do they have?
Part of their future, Joe Flacco. He's not going to be there next year. Mac, you know when this is going to haunt the Jets? And when you're going to be complaining and retroactively complaining come draft night.
Mm-hmm.
The Jets are going to be looking, and there's going to be a player in the 3rd round of the draft who they like, who they want to move up to get. So the player's going to be a few spots ahead of when the Jets pick, and the Jets are going to think, wow, we'd love to flip-flop our 3rd-round draft choices with this team, but we won't have a number 5 draft choice, 5th-round draft choice to throw in to entice the other team to deal with us. That's how deals are made all the time. The Jets are giving up capital.
Well, first, it's a 6th-round draft choice. And second, what other choice did the Jets
have? 5th. It reverts to a 5th-round draft choice.
What other choice did the Jets have? Who are they going to get?
Play the guys they have. What's the difference?
They don't have anybody else, Jack.
The
practice team quarterback came up, Jack. What other choices did the Jets have? Who are they going to get?
They have 2 quarterbacks. Play the guys they have, White and Johnson. Josh Johnson came off their practice squad. He was with them in training camp.
Right.
He knows the system. Same thing with White, who's playing. Now let those guys play. You're not going anywhere this year anyway. What the darn difference does it make having Joe Flacco? Joe Flacco doesn't have it anymore. Why do you think the Eagles were so anxious to move on from him?
Because they got a draft choice. The point
Thank you.
The point I'm making, Jack, is even if Flacco doesn't play, you do need a veteran quarterback in the locker. You need that in the NFL film room itself.
They had Flacco. He wasn't. They got rid of him at the end of the season.
Understand, Jack, because they thought they had Zach Wilson, which was the next
Flacco
coming.
played terribly for the Jets.
I agree, Jack. He hasn't played that well in years. Listen, the point is, we're coming away from the point. The Jets made a terrible mistake starting Zach Wilson this year, and they may pay for it for years to come. Because never mind that 6th-round draft choice, you spent your 1st-round draft choice on a quarterback that you put in harm's way and got him hurt. And I hope for the Jets.
Herbert started for the Chargers. He wasn't supposed to, because Anthony Lynn would have made a tremendous blunder by starting Tyrod Taylor.
You're going to compare the Chargers to the Jets, Jack.
The Chargers were one of the worst teams in the NFL when they drafted Justin Herbert.
Jack, the Jets were the most, I don't care what the record is, was the most terrible team in the league last year, bar none. There was no team worse than even the Jaguars were better than the Jets if you look at the scores. I'm telling you right now, Jack, that was a terrible play by the Jets. And you could see it the first game. You could see it the second game. You could see it was getting worse. You pull the kid out of there.
Mac, I can understand.
You get him on the bench. You let him relax. You let him learn the game more at the professional level. You let him learn the game better, and you get a veteran quarterback in there. And if you want to have a chance at maybe competing with other teams.
A competent veteran quarterback.
Agree.
That's the difference. You got veteran quarterbacks you could pluck out from anywhere all the time. Listen, I could understand with the Bears. Andy Dalton's been to the playoffs a good number of times. He's been in the league. He's competent. We agree on that. If Andy Dalton was on the Jets, I would understand your argument, okay? And maybe even go along with it, okay? The 49ers situation with Trey Lance, you got Jimmy Garoppolo there. That's fine. You have a highly competent quarterback over there. But these other teams that have no one, look, New England moved on from Cam Newton, and they took the chance of Mac Jones. It's worked out. And I don't want to hear, New England is a good team. New England is so-so.
It's a good organization.
But listen, at Jacksonville, they're going with Trevor Lawrence the whole time. He's learning. He's playing. I understand what you're saying. You could give an example of Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs. He sat a year behind Alex Smith and learned, but there's a difference there. The Chiefs were a playoff team.
Agreed.
Alex Smith was a starting NFL caliber quarterback, maybe not one of the better ones in the NFL, but nevertheless, he was a starting caliber quarterback. Okay, but to bring in a guy like a Joe Flacco at this stage of his career, who really has nothing going for him, you're wasting time. And listen, and I could also understand you're holding Zach Wilson on the bench. If the team looks like they're getting better and by next year they're going to be okay, then you start playing them, you ease them in. But the Jets are a mess. They were a mess last year. They were a mess this year. The KC Chiefs were in a mess when Mahomes was on the bench. They were a playoff team, and you knew they were contending with him. Same thing with the 49ers, even though they've been losing this year.
As we continue going in a circle here, so do you think, and I'm talking about the beginning of the year, if the Jets kept Sam Darnold like they should have, let him start, play as good as he could play, and have that kid sit behind him like I suggested in the beginning of the draft. They still had the first-round draft pick, Jack, or the second pick in the first round. So if they had Sam Darnold there still, and Sam Darnold played this year on a bad team like he has the past 3 years, it wouldn't have mattered. But then you have Zach Wilson waiting in the reins to learn the professional football. And that's what I said in the beginning of the year, that don't trade Sam Darnold. Let him take that last year. Let him finish out his contract, and you got Zach Wilson waiting behind him.
You know, the Jets got for Sam Darnold 3 draft choices, a number 2, a number 4, and a number 6. They wouldn't have gotten that, and those are valuable picks.
Maybe so,
Okay?
Jack.
Especially
Maybe
2-5. And Sam Darnold would have been an absolute flop this year.
Agree. I
He
don't
would have
disagree.
been awful on the Jet team.
I don't
and
disagree.
People would, and the pressure on the Jets to play Zach Wilson would have gone through the roof had the Jets kept Sam Darnold.
Well, then maybe, Jack, bring Zach Wilson in half the year. Maybe not. Maybe you look at your team and say, wait, I ain't putting that kid out there. Chicago made a huge mistake putting Justin Fields in already. I don't care what the public says. Huge mistake. They should have stuck with Andy Dalton like they said. Let the kid learn. Let him become a little bit more wise to the NFL, and I think he would be great. I'm telling you right now, Jack, we've seen it throughout history that a lot of first-round draft pick quarterbacks, not just number ones, but first-round draft pick quarterbacks get ruined because they rush them. It's only the elite.
Kyler Murray, you talk about Arizona. Kyler Murray played from the get-go.
I agree, Jack. There's some that can do it. There's some that can do it. But the Cardinals were not as bad as the Jets. I'm talking about a rebuilding year with a new offensive coordinator, no running game, offensive line a question mark. Your defense ain't that good. Why do you want to subject that kid to that? That's all I'm saying, Jack. That's all I'm saying.
I can understand. There are two schools of thought. Listen, a lot of head coaches think the way you do. They want to ease a guy in. They don't want to play him because they feel they're not going to have immediate success with that quarterback. Why play him? Because once you start playing him, you're committed. You can't go back. Look, with the Giants, with Eli Manning, Tom Coughlin didn't start him in the beginning, but then he put Eli Manning in, I think, after 9 games. Yes. The Giants had a 5-4 record, and they wound up going 6-10. So Eli Manning, it didn't work out the first year, but you knew Eli Manning was your future, and even though you had a Hall of Fame type quarterback in Kurt Warner there, who would go to a Super Bowl later on, you knew Eli Manning was the future of your team.
Agree.
Situations vary. Unfortunately, with the Jets right now, it's a mess. There's no running game at all to alter the strategy. Their running game is awful. And even if the offensive line is playing well, then, an offensive line is going to elevate any running game. They're the key. But the Jet backs just aren't impressive. There's no playmakers in their backfield.
I don't know, Jack. I agree with everything you're saying, but one group of players that need to chemistry, that need to work together, it's like nobody else is the offensive line. They should improve as the year goes on. They should. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. But they should improve the more they play together. So hopefully the Jets can get a running game at least by the end of the year going. That would show me signs that the coaches over there kind of know what they're doing instead of trying to throw the ball over the place.
I'll tell you, Mac, I was so disappointed Sunday with the New England game. They lost 54-13 because that was coming off a bye week.
Yeah.
When you come off a bye week, there are two ways of looking at it. You could think to yourself, well, the players maybe had a little time off. They lost a little concentration. Not playing the week before, they got out of their routine. They lost their edge. I look at it another way. I think it should be better coming off a bye week because especially the coaching staff, it gives you more time to prepare. And they were awful. I mean, they seemed to regress from when they lost to New England in the second game of the season because at least early in the year with the Jets with Robert Salah, who came over from the 49ers as the defensive specialist, their defense was hanging in tough early in the year. Their defense really wasn't bad early on. I saw some good things, but their defense was dreadful against the Niners.
Against the Patriots, they definitely were.
Patriots, I'm sorry.
So Jack, I guess we'll see what happens there. I mean, Dallas is coming off a bye, playing a tough Minnesota team. We'll see if Dallas is ready for this Minnesota team that's been playing really good lately. And
that's the difference. Dallas has got weapons all over the place.
We'll see.
So let's say hypothetically, if Zach Wilson was on the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, you got the backs over there like Zeke and Pollard you could hand off to who are difference makers.
Sure.
You got, the receivers over there like Cooper Lamb, who you
Gallup.
can start to what difference makers.
And you got a very good offensive line, Jack, which is even more important than any of the people you mentioned. Folks,
Right.
we're gonna take our last break for the show. We'll be back. We still got NBA news, and we still got a little bit of more sports to talk about. Stick with us, and we'll be right back after these messages. Boom.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
I heard you want to be a Frito Bandito like me. You do. Then you must sing the Bandito song. Let's sing together. You just follow the bouncing Fritos corn chips bag. Ay, 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 ay. I am the Frito Bandito. Hey, I like Fritos corn chips. I love them, I do. I want Fritos corn chips. I'll get them from you. Ay, 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 ay. Oh, I am the Frito Bandito. Give me Fritos corn chips and I'll be your friend. The Frito Bandito, you must not offend. Now, boys and girls, you are Frito Banditos too. You sing the Frito Bandito song and you look for crunchy Fritos corn chips. That's nice. Munch, munch, munchy bunchy Fritos corn chips.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
When the job is done, this guy'll be ready to dig into something mighty good to eat.
How do you handle a hungry man? The manhandlers.
One of the manhandlers is Campbell's vegetable beef. Gets a man-sized supper off to a good hot start. Good.
The manhandlers.
Jack is a legendary Hall of Fame boxing writer. Mac spells cat with the letter K. Mac played football and baseball for 10 years, coached football for 12. Jack was the wiffle ball home run king of the neighborhood. Jack was a sparring partner of the middleweight champion of the world, Golden Gloves boxer. Mac still reads cereal boxes at breakfast. Together they form the Sports Odd Couple. Both know sports in every way, but mostly at odds with their commentary and opinion. The Mac and Jack Sports Show, 8 to 10 a.m. on Facebook Live, Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel, Thursday through Sunday, also on Spotify. Tune in and enjoy the show. morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, here to go over a lot of sports today, Jack. I mean, we've touched on almost every sport there is, except for the great sport of cricket. And
I'm going to tell you, Mac, you know, the way we were talking about the Jets, we weren't talking about the Giants. And it makes you think what one victory does, because the Giants were under such severe heat before last week. They still are, but people at least are holding their tongue for 1 week because the Giants played really well against the Carolina Panthers. They won the game decisively. But you have to think, you know, the coach's mindset, as relieved as they are to win a game, they might even be more relieved to get people off their back for the week. They don't have to hear all the negativity, and they can concentrate on their job. Because right now, what Joe Judge was feeling the last few weeks, Robert Saleh's starting to feel that. And very slowly, the honeymoon period with Robert Saleh is dissolving very slowly, because when you play as poorly as the Jets did last week, that's unacceptable in any circumstance.
You know, let's talk about the Giants real quick. I mean, you can say Daniel Jones may never be a franchise quarterback, but if there's a tougher quarterback in the league, I'm not aware of him. And I watch football all the time, folks. This guy is not only a quarterback that's playing really well this year, throwing the ball, but he's a leading rusher on the team. He made a catch, I don't know if you saw it, Jack, against the Carolina Panthers. A one-handed over-his-head catch. Knew he was going to get hit, held onto the ball, and kept the drive alive. Now, again, I don't know if he'll ever be that franchise quarterback the Giants were looking for. But if I have a game and I want somebody to give me everything he's got, there's no quarterback in the league, to me, that's tougher than Daniel Jones.
Hey, listen, the jury's still out on Daniel Jones. Let's be honest about it. We don't know one way or another whether he should be the Giant franchise quarterback going forward. They're going to have to make a decision soon. Let's see how he plays the rest of the game. I remember with Geno Smith when he quarterbacked the New York Jets for a full season, his first season. The Jets finished up with an 8-8 record. And at the end of the year, I didn't know whether Geno Smith should be the guy. He didn't show you enough that he should be their franchise quarterback, but he didn't perform poorly enough to show you that he shouldn't be either. But of course, subsequent events showed that he shouldn't be. Daniel Jones, in a way, is in that situation. We just don't know, whether he's the guy going forward or not, or whether if the Giants can improve their situation, whether, they should go in another direction. I mean, in Daniel Jones's case, like, time is really going to tell.
Yeah, I mean, hey, good morning, Carlos. Glad to have you in. I watch all the football games, Carlos. I'm not going to compare Daniel Jones to Russell Wilson. There's no.
Notice he doesn't say Jack. He knows that I'm watching these games, Mac, that I'm attuned to this. Seattle, well, listen, Carlos says Geno Smith, right. He's a backup. And last Monday, the Seattle Seahawks with Geno Smith quarterbacking in place of Russell Wilson, they lost to the New Orleans Saints. That was a time for Geno Smith to step up and show a little more. He obviously is never going to replace Russell Wilson as a Seahawks. That won't happen. But there are other jobs in the NFL. If Geno Smith shows a lot, who knows? At the end of the year, he could maybe go somewhere else, maybe be given an opportunity. There are not that many opportunities to start in the NFL because most teams have their players, but you never know. There could be a team like the Detroit Lions where someone could slip in, play well, and they could stick with him for a while.
Yeah, and Carlos does bring up a good point. I mean, to me, Seattle without Russell Wilson and the Saints, I don't see him going anywhere this year. I don't even know either team will make the playoffs. And that's normally how you lose, Carlos. You don't lose mainly by teams beating you. You normally lose by beating yourself 80% of the time. So that's not surprising. That's how a lot of teams lose. Back to the Giants real quick. They got Kansas City Monday night, Jack. Kansas City doesn't look good at all. I mean, even Patrick Mahomes, who's still doing the same things he's done, and everybody was quick to anoint him the greatest quarterback ever, are starting to be quiet now. And, to me, not taking anything away from Patrick Mahomes, because he's a great quarterback. There's no doubt about that. But when people put the expectations on a guy that's only been in the league 2 years, that he could be the greatest quarterback ever, is people reaching and trying to get ratings or trying to make a crazy comment that people will listen to. And then when they win, they say, oh, look. Well, these same people that made that comment aren't saying I was wrong. You can't compare him to the greatest quarterbacks in football history until he's played for at least 5, 6, 7, 8 years, right?
I got to tell you something. I was listening to Jimmy Johnson interviewed in the offseason, and he said that Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback he's ever seen. He also said you got to rate Tom Brady as the best based on accomplishments. But to just visually watch a quarterback, he's never seen a quarterback as good as Patrick Mahomes. That's what, mainly because Patrick Mahomes could make these crazy, sensational throws, okay? The thought was, but, the Giant game at Kansas City, is intriguing. After Kansas City won their Super Bowl, you thought they were going to have a couple of more Super Bowl, wins. And then last year, they even though they were 14-2, they kind of won a lot of close games. They weren't dominated. And, of course, they lost in the Super Bowl. I think their problem this year is more in defense than offense, because Patrick Mahomes, on balance, has performed well this year.
No, he hasn't, Jack. Not even close.
Well, not compared to his old self.
He leads the league in interceptions. He's tied for league interceptions. He's not playing well.
Well, he's throwing a lot.
Well, so what?
He's not playing well according to the
Patrick against Tennessee.
That we're used to.
Against Tennessee, he didn't score. They scored 3 points, Jack. He didn't even throw for a touchdown. Listen,
I'm throwing out the game with Tennessee.
The Chiefs' offensive line is rebuilt, and they're not as good as they were last year, no doubt.
Well, the Chiefs can't stop the run. Their
offense can't stop the rush, or they can't run the ball either. He's in a position right now, rushing the throws, trying to make something happen. And Patrick Mahomes is used to winning. And when you're used to winning, you think a lot of times you forget that it's a team sport. Let's put it this way. Not Patrick Mahomes. I'm not him. People forget it's a team sport. People think because you have a very good quarterback, you're automatically going to win the games. That's the farthest thing from the truth. There's a lot of great quarterbacks that played on bad teams and did well. And there's a lot of average quarterbacks for the NFL that played on good teams and did well. So that's a wash as far as I'm concerned. Listen, the Chiefs are in a lot of trouble right now, Jack. And Patrick Mahomes is getting hit more than he's ever got hit. And he's trying to throw balls that he threw before. I'm not saying they're not all good. Some of them are. But I think the defenses have caught up to the Kansas City offensive game plan. That's what I think has happened. And with that offensive line that's rebuilt, Kansas City will be lucky to make the playoffs this year, Jack.
I think Kansas City's problems are more on defense than offense, a lot more. But
I think it's both, Jack. I think it's both. And again, you say Tom Brady's more accomplished. I don't care what Jimmy Johnson says, because to me, Jimmy Johnson is just another guy giving his opinion. Patrick,
tell that to Jeff Coates Sunday. I'm going to take that quote. I'm going to have fun with that on Sunday.
As an analyst, he's still, as a coach, I'm not talking about as a coach. I'm talking as an analyst. Patrick Mahomes is nowhere close yet. Not only to Tom Brady, to Drew Brees, to Russell Wilson, to Johnny Unitas, to Fran Tarkenton, to any of these great quarterbacks, to Joe Montana. He's not even close yet.
Well, listen. He's better than Fran Tarkenton was. I mean,
oh please, Jack, you're not. Are you crazy?
I mean, listen. We can debate that, but let me say this about.
Are you crazy? In 3 years, you're going to compare him to Fran Tarkenton? Really? Then you don't. Then I don't respect that opinion at all. That's ridiculous. Fran Tarkenton was the number one quarterback in all statistics before Dan Marino broke his record, and that's how many years later?
Well, he played a long, long time.
So there's something to be said about that too, right, Jack?
I saw Fran Tarkenton get completely shut down in the Super Bowl.
I saw Fran Tarkenton make more plays than any quarterback in history that took bad teams and made them good. So, I mean, that's just a ridiculous statement.
Fran Tarkenton had a great career. Respect to Fran Tarkenton. But when you talk about the great quarterbacks of all time, Fran Tarkenton, he's just not up there. He's just not up there.
How can you even see that? Now I don't think you know what you're talking about.
I mean, I wouldn't put Fran
Tarkenton. That's a totally ridiculous. That's a ridiculous statement, Jack. Fran Tarkenton was Russell Wilson before there was a Russell Wilson. Fran Tarkenton made more plays with his legs and on his own without an offensive line and for part of his career. And he's the one in with short passes, made an all-pro out of Bob Tucker, made an all-pro out of Chuck Foreman coming out of the backfield. That's just ridiculous. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
I don't think a quarterback makes an all-pro out of a running back. They just don't. Chuck Foreman, it was the offensive line, the type of runner Chuck Foreman was. Fran Tarkenton didn't make him an all-pro. You can maybe say that about a receiver if they have a certain chemistry, yes, but not a running back. Troy Aikman handing off to Emmitt Smith.
I'm talking about throwing the ball, Jack. I'm talking about throwing the ball. I'm talking about throwing the ball to Chuck Foreman. I'm not talking about him running with the ball.
Chuck Foreman did the rest. He dumped off passes. Listen, Fran Tarkenton was charismatic. He was a scrambler.
Have you ever looked up Fran Tarkenton's statistics?
I saw him play. Have you ever looked up his statistics?
Well, I saw him play.
He didn't have a strong arm, Mac. He wasn't a downfield.
Neither Joe Montana. No, neither Joe Montana. I'm telling you right now.
Are you comparing Fran Tarkenton to Joe Montana? Are you saying he's on that level? Close to it?
Pretty close, yeah.
I'm saying we have a big difference of opinion.
Oh, we do, Jack. We do.
Fran Tarkenton was not nearly as good as Joe Montana.
Listen, I will put Fran Tarkenton in the same class as Joe Montana any day of the week, Jack.
Well, big difference of opinion we have.
Any day.
So you're saying Fran Tarkenton was about as good as Tom Brady?
You want to talk about? No, of course not. You can't say that. You could say that he was. If Fran Tarkenton was on them New England Patriot teams, if Fran Tarkenton was on them San Francisco 49er teams, he would have won a few Super Bowls, Jack. No doubt.
He didn't win with great Viking teams. He was with outstanding Viking teams, and the Vikings lost, 4 Super Bowls with Fran Tarkenton as the quarterback?
Lost 3, Jack. So you're trying to tell me that?
And I remember
you're trying to tell me. You're trying to tell me.
Fran Tarkenton down. Fran Tarkenton was a fine quarterback.
You're trying to tell me.
He had a great career.
You're trying to tell me.
He was an elite.
That Jim Kelly is not in the same class with John Elway, not in the same class as the other great one from the '83 class. You're trying to tell me that Jim Kelly was okay.
John Elway was a better quarterback than Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly was outstanding. Don't get me wrong. He was outstanding.
Well, you're
John
saying
Elway
was okay. You're saying Fran Tarkenton was okay because he lost 3 Super Bowls, but Jim Kelly was outstanding. Your logic makes no sense. Makes no sense at all. You're talking about Fran Tarkenton being on a Purple People Eater defense that was getting older and went up against probably one of the greatest teams of all time, Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Miami Dolphins.
They lost that game, as I recall, 16-6.
Right.
Fran Tarkenton couldn't do a thing. Then they lose to a Raider team, as I recall, in the Super Bowl, 32-14.
I agree.
Fran Tarkenton was ineffective. He never played well in those big spots. And if you want to look at the players he had weapons.
Were the Minnesota Vikings in the championship almost every year Fran Tarkenton was there?
They were contending. Fran
Fran
Tarkenton is a worthy Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer, and he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't mean to diminish Fran Tarkenton, but don't tell me Fran Tarkenton was as good as Patrick Mahomes. The only argument you can make...
Better than Patrick Mahomes right now,
Jack. The only argument you could make there,
Patrick Mahomes has played for 3 years, Jack.
That's the only argument you could make. Right. You could say Mahomes hasn't played long enough. Based on career, because Fran Tarkenton played so much longer, you could say You can't compare Patrick Mahomes to Fran Tarkenton
Agree.
yet
Yes, that's
based
what I'm
on
saying.
how long he has played.
Right, I agree.
Make
That's what I
that
said.
Argument.
That's what I said.
But let me tell
are
you
you going to
something.
tell me? Are you going to tell me if you look at stats?
I'm going to tell you
That
this.
Fran Tarkenton. I mean, you put him against Johnny Unitas. His stats
Forget
overwhelmed
the stats for 1 second.
Okay.
Listen, obviously, Unitas has to be rated ahead of Patrick Mahomes based on career achievement right now. Right now. But I can guarantee you this. Make all the, let's say they're all 25 years old again.
Right.
All 25 years old, and they're all going to have 10 years in the league. I can guarantee you not one NFL coach would pick Fran Tarkenton over Patrick Mahomes going forward for the next 10 years if Fran Tarkenton was 25 years old again. Now,
let me tell you, Fran Tarkenton in his rookie year, if you look up the stats, was almost just as good as Patrick Mahomes for rookie year.
Patrick Mahomes' rookie year was spent on the bench as a backup to Alex Smith.
Let's say his second.
That was the plan all along, of course.
Well, I mean rookie year by him playing, Jack. I don't mean him sitting on the bench in rookie year. I'm talking about his first year playing quarterback. If you look up the stats of Fran Tarkenton and Patrick Mahomes, I would guarantee you,
Fran Tarkenton and Patrick Mahomes played. Listen, Fran Tarkenton went from the Vikings to the Giants, back to the Vikings.
Right.
I can tell you this, Patrick Mahomes isn't going to be moved around during his career. The Chiefs aren't going to trade him. And the Giants, the Vikings and Giants traded with Fran Tarkenton. That wasn't a free agent thing, you know.
They sure did because the Giants want the Fran Tarkenton one out of
Fran Tarkenton, as I recall, wasn't. No one ever said he was the best during his own era.
Here we
during
go.
his own era, no one compared him to Johnny Unitas. No one at all.
Let me tell
Johnny
you,
Unitas was considered way better than Fran Tarkenton.
Right.
Bart Starr was considered better than Fran Tarkenton.
Well, he wasn't. He wasn't. But let's look at Patrick Mahomes' stats this year, Jack, because we're talking about how great Patrick Mahomes is. His completion rate against the Titans was 57.
Oh, good God! You're talking about one game you did.
Wait a minute. Let me finish. You know, let me finish. You're just rambling. Patrick Mahomes so far has 2, 4, 9, 12, 18 TDs, and he has 9 interceptions. His overall rating is 97.9. His completion percentage is 67.5. Pretty good, right? Pretty good. But is that the best quarterback in the league today? This year? Is that the best quarterback, you think?
No, not the way he's played this year, but also Patrick Mahomes has been hurt.
So we're going to give him excuses and not anybody else that was hurt playing too.
Well, listen, Pat, all I'm telling you is a consensus around the NFL. The consensus around the NFL wasn't mine that Patrick Mahomes was the best quarterback in the NFL, could do things other quarterbacks couldn't do. And obviously, he has to have a longer career. If you're going to place him,
so are you going to say currently Patrick Mahomes is better than Tom Brady right now?
This season, right at this
last 3 seasons.
No, I wouldn't say that. No.
Last 3 seasons, is he better than Tom Brady?
The last 3 seasons on balance, yes.
I disagree with that. Do you think and the last couple seasons is he better than Lamar Jackson as a quarterback, as a player?
Not this year, certainly not last year. Yeah, he was better last year than Lamar Jackson was.
How about the year before that? You think?
The year they won the Super Bowl. Yeah, the Patrick Mahomes of the Chiefs. The year they won the Super Bowl, it was better quarterback than the Lamar Jackson as it is here. Lamar Jackson's the league MVP. Things, but last week he kind of.
Do you think Patrick Mahomes was better than Drew Brees and Drew Brees is in his prime?
Patrick Mahomes' prime at his very best, yes, I say he's better than Drew Brees.
Maybe not. I say it's up for debate. Russell Wilson in his prime. You think he's better than Russell Wilson?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's up for debate too, Jack. I don't say absolutely to
both guys at that. We're talking about both guys at peak value.
Yeah, right, at their best 3 years. Their best 3 years.
Well, I think, yeah, on balance, yeah. I think, yeah.
Not absolutely. On balance is not absolutely. So you're saying that maybe he is, or on balance he is. I disagree. I don't think Patrick Mahomes,
Well, right now,
in his 3 years, compared to Russell Wilson's best 3 years, compared to Tom Brady's best 3 years, compared to Drew Brees' three best years, he's not the greatest.
Mac, football is a team game. You always say that. The Chiefs are a mess this year.
Yes.
They're a mess.
Yes.
Patrick Mahomes has had to try to put them on his back. You know, the Giant game Monday, I meant to make a point. In boxing, there's a saying, two fighters fighting, they call it a crossroads fight, meaning that's an absolute must-win fight for both guys. That's what the crossroads fight is. The winner of the Chiefs-Giant game is still going to be relevant. I know the Giants have struggled, but they'll get their third win. Maybe they could make something out of this season if they beat the Chiefs.
Yes.
Same with the Chiefs. If the Chiefs lose to the Giants, no more talk of, well, they might not make the playoffs. The talk changes so they probably won't make the playoffs. You can maybe say that now they probably won't make the playoffs. But if they lose to the Giants, you could say that they're probably not going to make the playoffs. And it falls in between probably and definitely. So that's a true must win. Talk to me the next show next week after Monday's game. Let's see how Patrick Mahomes performs. Okay.
Would you agree that the Kansas City Chiefs should beat the Giants? Would you agree with that?
Wow, at this stage of playing in Kansas City, I would think, yeah, it's in that they're wounded, the Chiefs. They got to get it done.
I would too.
The Giants, I would think so.
I would too.
If the Giants win that game and the Giant defense plays really well, and Patrick Mahomes throws a couple of interceptions that I'm not talking about deflections, balls that shouldn't have been intercepted. Yeah, I mean, we reevaluate him at his current time. But my suspicion is if something like that happens, the Chiefs are going to shut Patrick Mahomes down the rest of the year. And we're going to find out that his big toe that supposedly is injured. And the talk was he shouldn't have even been playing in the Super Bowl. That's how badly hurt he was. But let's see what happens in that game. You know, I think the Chiefs should win, but if they don't, Mahomes plays well. And if they don't shut him down the rest of the year, and it's on Patrick Mahomes to a degree too. I don't want to hear, well, it's the rest of the team, because as a quarterback, you're supposed to elevate your team somewhat. There's only so much you could do.
Agree.
But you're supposed to elevate them somewhat under dire circumstances.
I agree with everything you said there. We finally agreed. So let's get to the NBA before we run out of time here, Jack. NBA is really interesting to me. I think the East Conference has become maybe more competitive than the West right now. I mean, with all the young teams that are coming up, Miami, Chicago, even the Orlando Magic look pretty good. I mean, I think the East has had a rebirth in the last year or so, and I think the Hawks live that way.
The Orlando Magic looking good, Mac. You're getting carried away. I know they got Suggs in the draft, and he's a great player for him. But come on, Mac.
I'm not saying right now, Jack. I think that this is a conference on the rise. Okay, I really do. The Chicago may run out of gas too, but I think they're a conference on the rise. I think that they're pretty even to the West this year. I really do. I mean, if you look at it right now, you got the Bulls at 4-0. And I mean, I don't think this is an anomaly. I think the Bulls are going to have a real good team this year. You look at Charlotte, 3-1, pretty good team. I think they're for real too. And if you look at right now, there's like how many teams tied at 3-1 right now? You got the Knicks, and you got a few teams that are tied with the Knicks right now. And you know something? The Nets and the 76ers have such a big soap opera on both teams right now. I think it's affecting. I think Ben Simmons and that thing is affecting the 76ers. And I think the Nets and Kyrie is affecting the Nets. And I would not be surprised. Not that they don't make the playoffs, they will. Both teams should make the playoffs. But I don't know if they're gonna do anything in the playoffs this year, Jack. The Bucks are still sitting there. They're just waiting.
But the Miami Heat too.
Miami Heat, I forgot them.
Yeah,
I forgot them. I mean,
and I agree with you about the Bulls and the Hornets. They're two teams on the rise. There's so many good teams in the West too. There's so many good teams in the NBA who are more relevant than ever before.
Yeah, I mean, you got Carlos saying the Nets are the best. I don't think so. I don't think the Nets are the best right now. I think the Nets are in trouble if Kyrie continues to be a problem.
Kyrie will continue to be a problem.
There's no doubt.
And I'm going to tell you, if the Nets can work out a deal with anyone where they could get really good value in return, cut ties with that guy. I mean, we're sick of them, the constant soap opera things that are going on with Kyrie. I don't care if you tackle each one individually, you can maybe make a little case on his behalf. I understand that. But it's always going to be something with Kyrie. There's always going to be high maintenance on and off the court. Also with the Nets too, James Harden's got to go back to being James Harden, being a scoring machine. And it's as if James Harden's being held back somewhat. The Nets who went into this season, Las Vegas had them as favorites to win the NBA title. It's a struggle because Kevin Durant's playing like the superstar he is, and they're still struggling.
Yeah. I mean, and say what you want. The Knicks look totally different than they did last year. Last year, here's some scores of the Knicks, Jack, right? I mean, 2 out of 3 wins, 138 and 121. That don't sound like the Knicks from last year. That Fournier was an unbelievable pickup. I think whoever thought of getting Fournier was very smart. The man has that outside shot. You still got the low scoring down underneath. You got a center that can rebound. You've got some nice pieces, young pieces there. You've got a new point guard to go along with the older point guard that has a lot with Rose, who has a lot of experience. I mean, the Knicks, I think, are going to be better than they were last year, Jack.
No, they won't. They were number 4 seed last year. I highly doubt that they could be a number 4 seed this year. Listen, they got a great coach in Tom Thibodeau, but the wheels could come off the Knicks. Don't kid yourself. I mean, they have a lot of decent players, but you're one of like Julius Randle, who played very well last year. We don't know whether he could continue as an impact player. He doesn't strike me as such, but he has been playing well. Kemba Walker's off to a little bit of a slow start.
Big game last game.
We don't know with Barrett how he's really going to be in the long term. He's been a little erratic. Fournier comes over, gets off to a great start. It doesn't mean it's going to continue. It all might for the Knicks. It all might. But when you look at the competition in the East, the teams that were behind them, I mean, the Heat. I mean, and the Knicks going to be better than the Heat by the end of the year. The Bulls are so much better, like you said, and the Hornets, the Atlanta Hawks, whoever better than the Knicks. And let's bet that if the Sixers and Nets get their act together, the Bucks get their act together, they're better teams than the Knicks.
I don't know if the 76ers are, Jack. I'm worried about the 76ers, not just because of Simmons. I think the 76ers had it. It's been said before this that 76ers got Simmons and put Embiid. They said there's a problem with having them both on the court at the same time, spacing-wise. You got a guy that plays well under the net with Embiid, even though he can shoot the outside shot. His game is underneath. So is Simmons. It's hard when you have two guys that are as explosive. Let me put it that way, even though Simmons messed up in the playoffs. Normally very explosive to the basket. So Embiid, it's very tough to have two guys that do that very well and to succeed on the floor because of the spacing. So, and they really don't have.
Mac, they won. They won when they were together on the court. That's the bottom line. I mean, there was so much more. There's so much more successful with Simmons. But again, the same situation as with Kyrie Irving. Can you get decent value in return? What can you get in return? There's maybe one team that's looking to make a deal because they feel Simmons or Irving could be a difference maker when, especially Irving when he eventually plays. I wouldn't like a deal Simmons for Irving because I feel that if I'm the Nets, because I feel that would benefit the Sixers more because Irving's a great player when he's focused.
Do you think the 76ers right now would take Kyrie? You think any team would take Kyrie Irving right now?
For Ben Simmons, they might. Because you put Irving in with Embiid, they become a different team. They actually become a better team short term. Short term, I'm talking about. Listen, I hope not a team like the Nets doesn't, panic, for example, and let's say make a deal with the Lakers, Westbrook for Irving. I mean, that wouldn't benefit the Nets either. But there's got to be like a team out there, who would be willing to deal eventually.
I mean, I don't know any team. I wouldn't want Irving on my team just because he just doesn't want to play, doesn't want to do what he has to do to play. I wouldn't want Simmons either. I wouldn't want either of these guys. And I know they're both good when they're on the floor and they're at their best. But man, it would scare the heck out of me what they would do to the team. I don't know, Jack. Out there in the West, Golden State looks pretty good, Jack. Do you think they can make a run at the championship this year over there?
Yeah, Golden State. I mean, they've gotten off to a great start. Is Golden State doing things based on their reputation a little more? That's what I'd like to know because we remember the glory thing. Steph Curry, one of the more charismatic players in the game, and he's off to a great start. I mean, they look well balanced, but let's see what Klay Thompson coming back. If Klay Thompson can come back and be his old self, the answer is definitely they can make a run for the NBA title. The key is Klay Thompson and how he is this year when he comes back.
I was just going to say that, Jack. If Klay Thompson could play anywhere close to at his best, I mean, he's one of the best outside shooters and guy that can go to the basket too. I mean, a little bit bigger than Steph, but those two guys together are dynamite. Lakers with Westbrook. I don't know, Jack. What do you think? Do you think
No. They're not going to be there at the end. I thought it was a mistake. Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony. I mean, what if they won over their careers? I'm sick of it. And and I don't want to hear Carmelo Anthony says, well, if the Pistons had drafted me, they'd have a couple of more championships. They wouldn't have just won one NBA championship. They would have won two more. Well, I don't think they maybe wouldn't have won their one championship if they drafted Carmelo Anthony. I don't want to hear about it. I'm sick of it. Some of these guys. Listen, Carmelo Anthony's a Hall of Fame in my book. I vote for him for the Hall of Fame. His game didn't translate into winning. Westbrook's game doesn't translate into winning. If LeBron could win an NBA championship with Westbrook and Carmelo Anthony, that would be the greatest achievement of his career. Listen, at least Carmelo Anthony's role is well defined. He's coming off the bench to give a team a spark. The problem's Westbrook. He shouldn't be starting. He shouldn't be on the court the same time as LeBron. Agreed. The Lakers are better off when LeBron goes to the bench during a game. Then you bring Westbrook in. I just don't like the chemistry with the Lakers.
I definitely agree with all the things you said, and we've got to stop this, Chad, because we're starting to agree too much when it comes to some issues here. I definitely agree. I think Westbrook would be good off the bench. Carmelo's good off the bench to give a couple people rest because Westbrook, I'm not going to say is the same game as LeBron, but he goes to the basket. He has a mid-range shot. LeBron likes to go to the basket, even though he does have the outside shot. LeBron, the better player, of course, but their games are kind of similar, and that would be great, I think, if Westbrook came off the bench with Carmelo.
Westbrook, I went over the history. He didn't win with Durant. They went to the finals one year, or with James Harden. The three were together. He went to Houston to join James Harden. They didn't win there. OKC brought in Paul George when Durant left. They got bumped early in the playoffs. Washington, okay. He was with Bradley Beal. They snuck into the playoffs, but that was all they did. Now he's going to the Lakers. You know, some guys have this great individual game, but it doesn't blend with other players, and that's the case with Westbrook.
You know what it kind of reminds me of before we go, Jack? When Peyton and the mailman went to LA, right? Two players looking to get that championship, and it didn't work out for them either. So it kind of
Kobe and Shaq weren't really getting along, and that created poor chemistry. Shaq criticizes other people now for saying stuff, you know, him and Kobe didn't get along, but really they didn't at the time, even though Shaq and Kobe late in life got along well.
I agree. So we'll see what happens with the Lakers, the Knicks, and all the things we talked about today. Thanks for joining us, folks. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow with our Friday edition with Byron Williams, the Philly sports guy, and Keith Angle. Again, thanks for joining us. Enjoy your Thursdays. I'm not. It doesn't want to end, Jack. The thing just keeps buffering. Today.
They want to hear more of us, Mac. They want us to go on every another 2 hours. I mean,